I don't think everyone has IVF as a viable option if they change their mind. I work at a county institution, and I would be somewhat fearful that people might downplay the permanence of this procedure, and by ease of use it in individuals who have every right to change their mind, and then they're over a barrel. So I think counseling is going to be very crucial in many settings.
Well, take the opposite side of it. I'm sorry to interrupt. Take the opposite side of that. So, would you recommend some form of labeling because of the information that's been presented in terms of fibrosis, continued inflammation, not something easily, would you recommend any labeling over and beyond a typical permanent method of other permanent methods of sterilization concerning reversal of this particular method, maybe especially in younger women? I mean, do you feel that strongly about it?
I do, and I agree that some assurance must be placed that because of ease of use, outpatient, and the perception of saving healthcare dollars, which are very precious, to accomplish a goal that we don't sweep under the table the importance of the permanence of it, and if one changes their mind. I mean, the most frequently performed procedure in practically every infertility service I know of at a municipal center is tubal reanastomosis. I mean, we do that every week, and these are women who were counseled and were told that tubal sterilization is permanent, yet they change their mind. Now, if we're putting these in and having to do corneal resections and trying to reimplant fallopian tubes, I mean, that's an altogether different kettle of fish. And the likelihood of them being successful is markedly diminished over conventional tubal sterilization.
As we know, under normal circumstances, the walls of the uterus are all but touching each other. And I think it's unlikely that this small mites that may in fact be covered over with fibrosis anyway is likely to interfere with a pregnancy. That's just one man's opinion, but we have no clinical evidence to support or refute that view.
And then can you comment about also the mention that electrocautery should not be used in when you're having hysterectomies or other procedures? Is that because of risk of burning or sparking, or what? Can you comment on the physical and how would that happen that way?
Again, the recommendation of the labeling suggests that we don't have enough information at this point in time, given the length of the trial, to speak to this. We have admonished or warned physicians to not use electrocautery within a 4-centimeter length from the Essure device. And we do know that at hysteroscopic endometrial ablation used with rollerball, again, in a commercial population, not in a clinical trial, we know that procedures have been done safely, which would suggest that the physician has visual control of the rollerball electrode and is keeping the electrode a safe distance from the device.
But just what would happen if you touch the electrode to the coils that are sitting into what would physically happen?
So they have direct pregnancy.
As we showed you earlier, we had quite extensive pre-hysterectomy and peri-hysterectomy studies that were conducted with devices in situ. During those procedures, electrocautery was used very commonly. We did recommend that they stay clear of the device for the reasons that Dr. Cooper has outlined. In one instance where the device was touched with a bulge basically going through, you can see that there was a little blanching of the tube. So we do recognize that with RF-type energy, it is likely to conduct one such.
My question would be basically with an X-ray, and you've got no outline of the uterine cavity or the uterus itself, because it's not going to show up soft tissue. I mean, how can you absolutely be sure that they're placed correctly? I mean, ultrasound obviously is going to give you at least the outline of the uterus itself, so you know that you're in the proximity. So obviously an HSG gives you a idea of the uterine cavity, so you know where the uterine cavity is. So I just have a hard time visualizing that you see two, sterilization objects in a flat plate and say, yeah, they're placed correctly. Who can really make that statement? You know what I mean?
The other thing of note is that there was one investigator who was doing the HSGs himself rather than having the radiologist do it, and his technique, one might describe as a bit aggressive for this procedure, and in fact was probably recanalizing past the device at that time point because of the amount of pressure and the duration of time that he was actually distending the uterus, because he was using as an endpoint basically the woman saying that hurts too much stuff. And so at that point he was probably opening the tube as is used in other applications with HSG.
Yeah, but let me interrupt you for a minute. But I don't think that's the real issue. I think the real issue is you got a great result because everybody went in and you knew ahead of time that everybody was occluded, okay? And that's great. But now you're asking the panel to say that it's okay not to have that check for occlusion. I think you can buy, most people will likely buy either ultrasound or x-ray for placement, but you don't have that occlusion. And now what we don't know is how many of those 16 would have gotten pregnant, okay, had they not been using some other form of contraception, and therefore would your results have been the same? And I don't know if our statistician could do it very quickly, but I mean, how many pregnancies would you have had to have had, in order to make your results not look anywhere near as good as they do? So the issue, I don't think, is whether the device works and it occludes. I don't think that's the issue at all. The issue is, we've had data presented that says nobody gets pregnant on this, but everybody got checked to make sure they were occluded. Now the question is, nobody's going to get checked to make sure they're occluded. Is the pregnancy rate going to be the same? And that's a little more difficult to believe, let's put it that way at this point.
I guess I'm not bringing up an issue I brought up when I first answered the question, or asked the question, was basically, it's not a question of reversibility, but it's a question of whether these patients really are even candidates for in vitro fertilization. I think we have to ask ourselves with these little devices coming out of the fallopian tubes, what statistical problems we're going to run into with pregnancies. If the patient does get pregnant, we've obviously had 3 pregnancies that went to term, and their studies from luteal phase, things that really showed no problems, but I don't think we have any data to the panel that would suggest that these things that we have any way of guessing as to what kind of upset complications would be created by having these devices in the uterine cavity.
All right, now we come to the voting, panel recommendation options, and I'm going to go ahead and read the options for pre-market approval applications. The medical device amendments to the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, the Act, as amended by the Safe Medical Devices Act of 1990, allows the Food and Drug Administration to obtain a recommendation from an expert advisory panel on designated medical device pre-market approval application, PMAs, that are filed with the agency. The PMA must stand on its own merits, and your
recommendation must be supported by safety and effectiveness data in the application or by applicable publicly available information. Safety is defined in the Act as reasonable assurance based on valid scientific evidence that the probable benefits to health under conditions on intended use outweigh any probable risks. Effectiveness is defined as reasonable assurance that in a significant portion of the population, the use of the device for its intended uses and conditions of use when labeled will provide clinically significant results. Your recommendation options for the vote are as follows. Approval if there are no conditions attached. Approvable with conditions, the panel may recommend that the PMA be found approvable subject to specified conditions such as physician or patient education, labeling changes, or further analysis of existing data. Prior to voting, all of the conditions should be discussed by the panel. And then third, not approvable. The panel may recommend that the PMA is not approvable if the data do not provide a reasonable assurance that the device is safe, or if a reasonable assurance has not been given that the device is effective. Next is the FDA. Member of the FDA for some final comments at this point. Nope, no comments from the FDA at this point.
No, we have no comments.
No comment. It's very politically correct. All right, then it's the company's opportunity to come. I've written it down, and please correct me if I'm wrong. We have a motion on the floor to vote for approval with conditions. The conditions that were included was the hysterosalpingogram at this point be required as was performed in the original study, but the committee recommends that the FDA be amenable to having the company bring forth further data on alternative methodologies to look at correct placement and patency to approach changing this particular recommendation. Number two, training to include knowledgeable hysteroscopists as a prerequisite for beginning to do these. In labeling, we include that we need to clarify the failure rate and place that, and the word was used was prominently, that some labeling need to address, and I'm going to paraphrase these. The issue of the young age and potential sequelae, that an issue be noted in the labeling. These are all labeling issues about metal sensitivity, electric cautery, and pregnancy subsequent to this procedure. That we have an issue or an inclusion about a recommended length for the procedure to the physician and a limit of 1,500 milliliters of saline for use in the patient. Again, the success rate at 99.8% should be clarified, or at least maybe not clarified, but something to the effect of the numbers, or something that patients can understand with the number of patients that this has been performed in. A recommendation that the procedure be performed in the proliferative phase of the cycle, that an educational, written, informed consent be obtained, and the company make an example to be provided to the physicians utilizing this device. Some recommendations included in the patient pamphlet concerning what to do if you miss a period. A quote-unquote fallback plan, which just what are you going to do if you are one of those where they're unable to insert this in both tubulostia. Definitely recommend the training as previously stated, and then that the continuation of the observation of the current patients for a total of 5 years, and then a better assessment, as has been discussed, of the failure of insertion rates for patient counseling and patient labeling. Did I state those to the satisfaction of the committee? Okay. If there is no other discussion, then let's go ahead and begin with a vote, and you're voting for approval with the pre-stated conditions. Let's go ahead and start with Dr. Nolan.
I vote aye.
I vote aye. Aye.
Yes.
Yes. I'm abstaining.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
passes with a vote of 8 yes, no, 0 no's, and 1 abstention. As is the custom, we'd like to go around the table and just have a brief mention of why you voted the way you did. Let's begin on this side, Dr. Shirk.
Well, I think this device is as safe as any other devices on the market. Certainly transcervical sterilization is ideal. I think it may represent a significant improvement in women's health care. And so I felt that we should approve the device. And I commend Conceptus on their PMA.
Thank you.
I voted yes because the device clearly met, and the studies presented, data presented, clearly met the criteria of safety and effectiveness required for approval.
Thank you.
This device clearly meets those requirements for safety and effectiveness, but I am cognizant of the issues that we've discussed, particularly the use in younger individuals who may not fully appreciate the permanence of the procedure, and I think we've belabored that point sufficiently that should be conveyed to anyone who might use it at that age.
Thank you.
I abstain for religious reasons.
Thank you.
I voted yes because I believe this offers women a less risky, more accessible procedure for permanent sterilization, and I think Conceptus was very thorough in the materials, the large quantity of materials which you provided.
Thank you.
I voted yes because I think the device clearly met the criteria for safety and effectiveness, as well as a favorable risk-benefit ratio, particularly since it offers the option of sterilization without general anesthesia, which is not basically currently available.
Thank you.
I voted yes because I thought many of the concerns that were voiced during the discussion were addressed in the final vote.
Thank you.
I voted yes because the results are very clear. I'm very impressed with the sponsors' data and all the discussion we had in panel to address all borderline issues, and I voted yes for that reasons.
Thank you.
I voted to approve the motion because I feel the company showed that the method is clearly safe and effective, and that it has a great chance of improving health care for women in the United States.
Thank you. I always allow the non-voting members, if they'd like to make a comment at this point, what they think. I'd be happy to listen.
I think this is a great addition to female contraception, and I commend the company. I think our deliberations are not just for today, but for tomorrow, and I hope the company proceeds post-haste putting them in place.
Okay, no comment. Okay, and I always reserve the right for the last set of comments. I'd like to compliment the company on what I think is one of the best presentations of a PMA that I've seen in 8 years here, and their data. Thank you very much. It made it for a very enjoyable day instead of a very difficult day, as we've had a few here in other times. I also would like to commend the audience for their participation and welcome their comments. Some of them were very good, and actually things that we had not thought of and were very good suggestions, so we appreciate that. And as always, I'd like to commend everyone at FDA for all of their hard work and wonderful presentations and wonderful participation, and I think you guys do a great job, so thank you. And with that, unless anyone else would like to make some comments, well, if you'd like to make some comments, otherwise we're going to close it up, because we're 25 minutes late, and I don't like to be late.
I would just like to thank the panel for your deliberations. Thank you.
All right, and so I'd like to thank the panel too. It was a great deliberation. Please leave all your paperwork here, and they'll get it taken care of with the confidential issues. Thank you very much. Thank you for the attention.
Good night. Show and tell.
I just wanted to beg the last question. If at 5 years the failure rate looks greater than anyone expected, could then there be some kind of contingency plan to follow that for another X amount of time?
We can recommend it.
So it'll depend on the performance of the
saying if the product's really good, we want to penalize them to have them follow more?
No, I think this works.
No, I thought he said if it was, did I understand it? I'm asking if I understood that right. If it's really low,
Yeah.
it's doing really well.
No. If there are people who are getting pregnant on using this product.
Well, if they are,
Yes.
then you know there's a problem at 5 years.
But that's
Right.
what, yeah.
But then what do you do?
Well, that's information you'll have.
Then we have another meeting.
And that can be brought back, you know, the FDA will have that information, they can give a report, do whatever they need to do with that information. I think I think if you had that, maybe I shouldn't, maybe they should tell me what they do. But what I would do is, once you have that information, then you have to take action on that available information and decide based on if the rates are poor, then obviously someone needs to write a paper about it, it needs to be publicized, that kind of thing. I don't think you'd want to necessarily follow them more based on that. I think you probably got the information you need. So I did misunderstand you, I'm sorry.
Private investigators would find each of us, bring us back here and ask us why we approved this.
Okay, I think we better get to voting pretty soon here.